I like to talk. People say, how would you describe who you are, what you do? If I was on another planet and they say, well, who are you? I'm a talking head. I love to talk. And if I get a laugh, then I'll talk more. Let me start at the beginning. I'm going to tell you something that is interesting to me, because I can tell you did your research. You asked me about a Pinto. I lied years ago and said that I drove in a Pinto because the car I drove in was even worse and a little more nondescript and forgettable, I guess you could say. I came here in a car called an AMC Spirit. And they don't even make it anymore. As a matter of fact, I don't even know if the acronym AMC exists. But I said Pinto in an interview because I didn't want to explain what an AMC Spirit was. I wish it was a Pinto, you know. And very few guys wish that they had a car that blows up. But I would rather have somebody run into the back of my Pinto than to live the life of an AMC Spirit owner. But that's what it was. It was kind of a bastardized cousin to the Pacer, you know? And I used to just say Pinto because it was an easy answer. So I jumped in my AMC Spirit after living in Chicago for a while. I went there to check out Second City, and I discovered stand-up. Nancy Wilson funded my move to California. Jay Leno gave me the advice I needed. Yeah, just go, stop being a fucking coward, you know? And he gave me his number. And I'm assuming Jay Leno, he's a huge star. He would never give me his number. You know, I don't have a dime to my name, and I don't give people my number. You know, I get to LA and call Jay Leno. Yeah. And it was amazing, but he told me to come out here, and I jumped in the AMC Spirit with a beanbag chair and the entire collection of Ohio Players LPs. No one knows what an LP is now. People are going through Funkin' Wagner, Google, LexisNexis, what? Anyway, but I came out here and I was thinking, I don't want to go back a failure. I even remember reading a book called Risking, and it talked about setting your goals and writing them down and telling people so you trap yourself into trying to make them come true. I never told anybody why I was going to LA. I think maybe 2 people knew. I figured when I fail, they won't ride me. I'll just say it was a vacation or I went to learn to surf. You know, but I didn't want to trap myself into a goal, and I didn't want to have, because people already said I was crazy, you know. You do a couple plays. I had bands that I was in, played drums, played bass, always wanted to be in entertainment. And when you mention it in a communications class or when you say it to somebody, they always say you're nuts. You know, you're going to LA, you know, come on. It's 1 in a million, buddy. And who do you know? Your dad works at General Motors, and, you know, your mom is this, and you're a regular guy from Cleveland, you know. As a matter of fact, everybody but my dad worked at General Motors, but you know, just regular people, you know, and everybody kind of thought you were nuts if you said you wanted to be an entertainer. So I just went. And I was usually thinking, as I was driving along through Tucumcari, I remember going through Tucumcari and thinking, I'm out of my mind. You know, I don't know anybody out there except Nancy Wilson and her manager, Jay Leno, and a guy I met from Good Times whose name escapes me right now in Tucumcari, you know. Trying to remember what the guy's name was. I can call him maybe. But I was thinking about not failing. So I didn't have to go back and tell everybody in Cleveland, I'm back. I went out there, I tried doing stand-up, spent some time in Chicago, and here I am. I'm gonna either be a preacher now or I'll work at General Motors like the rest of the family. Well, initially, when you land at the Improv, you're just glad to be there, and you see Robin Williams walk past you, and then Billy Crystal comes in, and a motorcycle comes to the front, and you realize it's Jay Leno and his friends, and you're here. All these guys, Larry Miller and Jerry Seinfeld walk in. And I remember Jerry was an inspiration because when you're a stand-up and you're struggling and you can't even get on at the comedy club, I didn't get on until one night Billy Crystal called and said he couldn't make it. And this comic Tom Dreesen pointed to me and said, that guy's funny. And Bud Friedman put me on. It literally, he was like, oh, what's his name? And I said, Arsenio Hall. And he says, oh gosh. And he walked away. And he went on stage and Arsenio Hall, and I think he introduced me by saying, I haven't met this young man, but I hear he's funny. The name sounds like a dorm on the campus of UCLA, so he better be funny. And he brought me on, and I did well. But Jerry was an inspiration because back during that time when everybody was struggling, and even the guys who were older than me, the class before me, the veterans were sometimes struggling, and he got a gig on a show called Benson, starring Robert Guillaume. And was it? Wait, what? No, it wasn't even Benson. It was the show. That was a spinoff of something. Benson was a spinoff of something else where there was a ventriloquist puppet and a governor, and I don't even.
Mary Hartman? No.
No, I forget the show. But I remember Jerry walking in and saying, I got an acting job. And it made you realize that I know someone who got a job, and let me hang in there. Let me keep going. My first time actually getting a job doing stand-up was the captain and Tony Tennille walked into one of the comedy clubs, and she was about to get a daytime talk show. I ended up doing stand-up on that show. Did all right, almost fell on the ground coming out of the chute there. They said my name, I was so excited. And there was one little step, and there's always a person when you walk out who says, watch your step. And I said, huh? And almost fell and grabbed something. And to this day, I can see myself, if I look at the tape, I can see myself recovering from the fall. And everything else, walking was hard. Everything else came real easy, and I did well. But my first time doing stand-up was on the Captain and Tennille's daytime talk show. It's the great thing about doing stand-up. You're your own writer, producer, and star, and I'm kind of a recluse, kind of a loner. It's a perfect business for me. When there's a boardroom meeting, it's just me. When there's a big decision made, do we do the joke? Yeah, let's do the joke. I'm that kind of guy. I'm a loner, and stand-up is the perfect business for me. I like doing what I do. As reclusive as I am, I enjoy that light. I enjoy that camera. And most of all, I love making people laugh. If I make you laugh, my day is made. And I think that's very important to a comic. You gotta, I don't know, when I see Terrell Owens score, he seems to have a great time in the end zone. He must love to score. Charlie Sheen loves to score. Now, anyway, you gotta love to score. I love to score. My touchdown is a laugh. And if I can make a person laugh, my day is worthwhile. I enjoy talking to people on camera. As a matter of fact, I enjoy being interviewed as much as I enjoy interviewing people. I just love that thing. I love that thing, and I love when that thing brings me a laugh. And I'll do it without that thing. I love a mic. See this thing? I love that thing. I love when that helps me get a laugh. I like to entertain, always have. At a wedding, my dad was a Baptist preacher, right? Cleveland, Ohio, Baptist preacher. He's doing a wedding. And the couple gets to the moment where he says, you may kiss the bride. They're kissing. It goes a little long, one of those Tom Cruise kisses where people are like, what you trying to prove? But sorry, Tom. Anyway, the kiss went on a little long. The preacher's son, who doesn't know the party, I'm just with my dad. When you go to work with dad and your dad's a preacher, you go to funerals and weddings. I'm sitting on the side and I say, kiss her, don't kill her. I'm 7. And I'm also in a lot of trouble at that point. But I heard the laughter, whether it's in school or a wedding. I think that's room service. Yeah. Hey, well, we checking out soon. We're doing an interview in a hotel, and the maid is trying the knob. We'll be out in a minute. I think checkout is at 2. Yes. Thanks. Just put the mints on the doorstep. I love making people laugh, and I got in trouble that day, and I often got in trouble for making people laugh, but I really love doing it. And the whole interview process, Larry King and I had lunch when I first started doing the talk show. And he said, you're going to be fine because you're curious. You're genuinely curious. And when you're nosy, because curious is the nice word, the polite word for nosy people. When you're nosy, when you really want to know the rest of the story, when you want to follow something up because you didn't give me the answer totally, that's really all you need. I love getting the dirt, getting the 411. I'll talk to a rock in a mall. You know, I do like to, I mean, you haven't asked me a question in 30 minutes. And I've talked to the doorknob, the maid, the camera. And if you leave, I will continue to talk. This is what I like doing. I like to talk. People say, well, how would you describe who you are, what you do? If I was on another planet, and they say, well, who are you? I'm a talking head. I love to talk. And if I get a laugh, then I'll talk more. So don't smile. You know, a lot of businessmen, public speakers will say the best weapon they have is humor. They'll even take classes. At one time, there was a comic at USC. He was teaching stand-up to businessmen to help them be better behind a podium, to be better in a room, closing a deal. There's nothing like laughter when you're dealing with that kind of stuff. There's nothing like laughter and humor when you're communicating. And I must admit, whether it's my dad or whether it's Jesse Jackson, if a speaker tosses in a twist of humor or makes you smile, that message is a lot more palatable, you know? I heard Jesse Jackson say in a sermon one time, he said, the chicken gives an egg, but the hog gives a leg, you know? And the entire room there was a smile, but there was also, what the hell? Guys who throw a little something extra in there, whether it be a joke or an antidote, it's the greatest thing for speaking, and that's what my dad did. When my dad was in the pulpit, he often made you smile about the week you've experienced, or about the problems you're having raising children, or surviving your marriage. He always humanized it by adding humor, and I think I got that from him. My mother's also real funny too. To live with my dad, she had to be funny, you know, very, very reclusive, anal guy. So she had to have a sense of humor. They both have a pretty good sense of humor. And when I am watching clips from Coming to America, the one character I did in there was a preacher, Reverend Brown. He was a combination of my father and a friend of my father's. And actually a guy who I met when I first came to LA who wasn't a preacher, but they called him Reverend. And it was a big joke because he was the furthest thing from it. And everybody used to call him, hey, Reverend, come here, Reverend. And really, he was just a flat-out player, you know. He used to hang out with Richard Pryor a lot. And his name was David Banks. And I combined these three people to create that preacher, you know. A lot of the lines came straight out of David Banks' mouth, you know. He was a funny guy. Good friend of Richard's. I think my philosophy was always, I mean, when you start, you don't know who you are. And you don't realize that being yourself is the best thing you can be. I actually, at one point, when I was doing stand-up, I sat on a stool because I had seen Bill Cosby sit. He sat in a director's chair. I'm like, I'll one-up him. I'll sit higher, you know, and I'll smoke a cigarette. You know, you do everything. You try a champagne glass. You try different things to find who you are. Eventually, you walk up one day, and after getting rid of all the fear, of being who you are. Because you're looking for protection. You're looking for things to hide behind. And once you stop hiding and you're not afraid to say, I'm from a divorced household. I'm from the mistake on the lake. Once you're honest about who you are, then you start to really find the humor, because if you're supposed to be there, the jokes will come to you just observing the situations. When I sit with my son, I was sitting with my son the other day and we're playing Madden football on GameCube. And I see Michael Vick and I say, whoa, he just gave me the finger. Now, my son had no idea what I was talking about because he hadn't seen the news that day, and he didn't know that Michael Vick likes to tell the audience he's number one in a unique way. But the jokes just come to you. You cross-reference in your mind. You see Michael Vick, you watch the news, you read everything you can read and consume, and if you're supposed to be on stage with that mic, the joke will come to you. Oh gosh, it was, you're really challenging my memory. I think he said to me, I don't know the key to success, but the key to failure is trying to please everybody. So do your thing, be who you are. And I tell young guys now that I'm an old man, I tell people, you can't wake up every day and fake it. So just wake up and be who you are. Because that's what I learned in the talk show situation. And when I first got the opportunity to host a talk show, Joan Rivers had just been fired from Fox. So there was the traditional desk and couch. And one of the things I did was I got rid of the desk because I didn't need the desk. And the only time I ever see a couch and a desk in my life is when I'm at therapy. So I didn't want it to be anything like that because that's a horrible experience. And then I'd begin bedwetting. So I didn't want it to be anything like that. So I got rid of the desk. And I know I like to get up. I like to be physical. I allowed myself that opportunity. I allowed myself to be me. What I know I can be every day is me. If I fake you out and create a persona to be like my heroes or to be like someone I admire, I'm going to fail, because one day I'm going to walk out and forget who I am. But I went through a time where, I smoked a cigarette, sat on a stool, and, from the ghetto of Cleveland, I was, so, welcome to the show. It's like, because I felt that rhythm in Jerry's voice worked. So I was like, I'm from the ghetto of Cleveland. Yes. And you try a lot of things, and then you find you. When Paramount told me they were going to give it a shot, let me do a talk show, I knew it was a huge opportunity, because other than Sammy Davis Jr., I had never even seen a black person host a talk show. But I remember Sammy having the opportunity to sit with Ed McMahon and sit with Ed McMahon on the Carson set. Do that again. I remember seeing Sammy Davis Jr. co-host The Tonight Show when I was young. And I think later Della Reese got to do it, Diana Ross got to do it, Cosby did it, but I knew it was a big thing to get my own show that had my name. And I was like, okay, now what? How do I make this thing work? And basically, when they told me what my demographic needed to be to succeed, they mentioned that 18 to 35 demo. And it dawned on me that what they wanted me to get was really the children of Johnny Carson's audience. So at that point, I was like, this should be easy. So what I started doing was thinking, what do I want to see on television? And what did I want to see as a younger man in college that wasn't there? And it was groups like the Black Crowes and groups like Houdini or artists like LL Cool J in the early days of rap. I'm looking at this whole world of entertainment that wasn't tapped. I remember reading an article that a guy named Juan Gabriel had sold out the Rose Bowl. And I was like, who is Juan Gabriel? And it dawned on me, there's an entire world of entertainment that had been ignored by The Tonight Show. And Juan Gabriel was, in this country, people may not know who he is, but in other countries, he's the Michael Jackson of the international music scene. So I started realizing through names like that, that there was a show. You know, there were kids with their pants on backwards, ready to become famous. And I was gonna tap that new generation. I didn't want Johnny's audience, I wanted the children of his audience. And that's how I remained friends, or that's how I remained not hated by the Carson regime, because they knew their numbers weren't gonna change. I was gonna bring people to television that weren't watching. I think, because your keyword, the key word in your question was party.
Right.
I knew my demographic wanted to party a little more than snap their fingers to Steve and Edie or whatever. So I decided to make the show, you know, you would see things like spring break. I remember one time Paramount did focus groups at spring break to find out what they thought of my show. I was like, that's my audience. People who drink beer and party in the water nude whenever they get a chance. That's my show. Nude partying in the water with beer. You know, I wanted that audience, you know. I went after them and I was very successful. I was the wild on generation. Well, the one thing I learned, I became a pretty good demographer. And I would look at Johnny's numbers and they didn't change. Johnny always hovered between 5 and 6, somewhere in that area, if I remember correctly. And when my show was considered a success and I had the Emmy nomination and all those wonderful things were happening for me, Johnny's number was the same. And that's when I realized this is gonna be a win-win situation. I don't have to be hated by my idol, Johnny Carson, and I can succeed right here because I'm gonna bring people to the screen that weren't there, versus other competitive situations in television where if somebody comes, someone has to go. And it gets crazy in this town. You know, if you're Emmanuel Lewis, you're watching Gary Coleman because you know one was the inspiration for the other. You know, come on, it's like, let's find another short black child, you know? And it's a very competitive business. If you're doing a certain thing on ABC, you know that they're gonna bite you on CBS and you gotta hold your ground. Hey, when Idol first hit, CBS came to me and said, let's bring back Star Search. That's what that's about. It's about seeing something that wins, and this town is terrible at that. Nobody really wants to create anything new. They just want to copy what's working. But to get something to work, sometimes you got to create something new. Basically, though, we've been doing, you know, Laverne and Shirley and certain things over and over and over and over again. We do the same, as far as chemistry is concerned, the same things over and over and over again. And I just wanted to try something new. As a matter of fact, one of the big problems I have right now is trying to take something in and wanting to do something new again. You know, I want to try it different. I mean, nobody's gonna invent the wheel in 2006, but you can try to create new art. You can try to do it a little different. And I love when people do something unique. I don't care if it's Flavor Flav and a girl taking a poop on the steps. I'm like, that's new, that's new. No one on VH1 has ever taken a poopy on the steps. That's new art. You know, I don't care what kind of art it is. Just try to do your own thing. Oh yeah, yeah. Anybody who tells you they don't borrow and disguise is a liar. You just try to allow it to grow until you've borrowed and then flourished into something new. My favorite thing to tell young comics is if you haven't stolen something from Richard Pryor, you're probably doing it wrong. And I always tell that to young comics because he's the guy you gotta go watch. You know, if you want to be a plumber, you're going to study galvanized pipe versus copper, and you're going to learn what all the different wrenches are. You can tell how mechanical I am. But the bottom line is you got to study that craft. So you got to study Richard because he's the best. When it comes to stand-up, he's the best. And all my heroes are in me. And the weird thing is, because they're not all stand-ups, you might not recognize what I've stolen. Sometimes when I watch myself, there is a cadence that I know is from so many years of Don Cornelius and the Soul Train. I love pauses. I love, there's nothing, I remember watching, I call it the Don Cornelius pause. Sometimes for a punchline or for drama, it works great, One of my favorite comics when I started out in Chicago was Marsha Warfield, and she used to do a joke where she says, I read in Cosmo that the most popular thing on men for women are eyes. Number one thing. Second was sense of humor. And she looks around and says, I got eyes. And that's it. And it's like sometimes the pause is so important. But yeah, Don Cornelius is one of my idols. I love Flip Wilson. Young comics now probably have no idea who Flip Wilson is. But he was the first guy I saw in prime time, host his own show. Anyone could watch him. You could sit with your whole family and enjoy him. And even though I didn't learn that lesson, because I have a tendency to be a little more risky and a little more blue, but there is an element of Flip Wilson probably in me before I speak. Flip Wilson, I don't know how to describe this, but you could not dislike Flip Wilson. There was a warmth about him. And I don't care who you were. If you were a redneck in Grand Forks, North Dakota, sitting in front of your Emerson with the pliers about to turn the channel, and you saw Flip Wilson. Did you have a TV like that where you broke the knob and had to use the pliers? Had hanger, open the hanger up, try to get cable. But trust me, when this guy sees Flip Wilson, he's gonna like him. I don't care who you are. When you see Flip, there's something about his aura, his persona that made you comfortable. And there was a likability. Before he spoke one word, you knew you could trust him. You felt like, I don't have to cross the street when that guy comes down the street. Because like Leno, when I see Leno, I cross the street. He has a criminal jaw. Geraldine had a boyfriend, and his life flourish. Geraldine had a boyfriend named Killer. Killer gonna get you. I used to could do the Geraldine voice, but a lot of Americans can state and don't have the octave I used to have. He was brilliant the way he created characters, and the characters had lives. And I think that's the important thing about acting. When Beyonce worked on her Dreamgirls character, she had to create a whole life for that person. Is this person a neat freak? Is this person in love? How long has this person been? You got to create the whole backstory. And Flip created that for Killer and for Geraldine. And therefore, these people were real to us. We knew about Geraldine's boyfriend and how jealous he was. And those things brought that character to life. Wow. Well, first of all, being a host is easy. Being a black host is very hard. It's a whole different world. Because first of all, no one shows up on time. See, we have a thing called CP time. When you book Stevie Wonder, you got to be expecting Stevie to show up on Tuesday instead of Monday. That's CP time. That's when you're a superstar on CP time. So there are a lot of things that are different in my world. In my world, you got to be, I always kept an extra dressing room that nobody was occupying. Because once a week we used it. Now, it could be to send 2 rappers in to solve some beef. I've had that back in the days when Eazy-E was alive and A lot of the rappers were rolling. There was beef. You know, somebody would show up at the studio and you say, "Yo, I'm gonna put y'all in a room." And I got to kind of be the elder statesman of this kind of hip hop thing. You know, put two people in a room. Y'all talk this out, man. Because what would really be cool is if y'all work out this beef and do a track together and get paid instead of get killed. Go on and talk. I've put many people in that room. You know who I put in that room for a different reason? I put Will Smith, Benny Medina, and Quincy Jones in that room. And they worked out, not beef. Believe me, Quincy was like, "Yo, I'll pop a cap in your ass." No, he didn't say that to Will Smith. I put them in a room because they had an idea. And the idea became the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It was about producer Benny Medina's life. Quincy wanted to hear the idea. They wanted Will to star in it. And I had forgotten about it and heard Will Smith tell the story on TV one night. And first of all, I was real proud because a lot of people forget how things happen. So for a major film star to remember that room and being put in that room made me feel real good. It made me feel like my life isn't in vain. I had something to do. You know, now I look back as an older guy, I look back and I say, everybody I put in that room should have been under contract. I should have got a commission off the battles that were solved and the shows that were created. But I say that only to say the show had a social life that went on in the back. My green room was like a major New York nightclub or something. People who weren't on the show. I've had people who've never been on the show who have been in the green room. You know, I've met major stars who I wasn't able to book, but it's like, "Hey, who are you here with?" "I came with Spade." You know, I remember meeting Chris Farley once. He was hanging out. It was a place to hang out. He was never on the show, but I think he was with David Spade. First time I met Flavor Flav, he was hanging out. "Flav, what you doing here?" "I want to see what this Vanilla Ice does, yo." And I was like, okay. It's interesting because Vanilla Ice says you and him are really good friends. Well, if that's what he said, yo, we friends. We friends, G. Introduce me to him. You know, but people would come to hang. You know, you get a call every day, "Tupac wants 2 seats." And you say, "Oh, it has a ring to it. Glad he doesn't want 3. When I started doing my talk show in every interview, I never challenged Johnny. I never said, "I'll do better than Johnny. I'm gonna take the C-Man down," you know. I learned from Alan because Alan is a really wonderful guy. And some of the people who marketed his show created this unnecessary competitive air for the guy coming from Canada, coming to America. He's gonna do his thing, and he's versatile, he's talented, and Johnny. You shouldn't mention your competitor's name. Just do your thing and find your niche. And don't get me wrong, Alan was never disrespectful to Johnny. But you don't always have control over the machine that's marketing your vehicle. I can't wait till the commercial. All my life, see, my background is so similar to Johnny's that the only way it could be more similar is if I was a stalker. You know, it's like I had pictures of Johnny in my room. Johnny and the Temptations. It's all about Johnny and the Temptations. That's it. My favorite show would be, I wish I could book a show with Johnny and the Temptations, you know. That's the show that I didn't book that I should have booked. But that's all I was into. And I was a close-up magician. Johnny was a magician. You know, we had very similar backgrounds, stand-up comic, loved to dress, or at least he looked like he loved to dress. Because one of my attractions to Johnny was, damn, Mr. Carson is clean. Every night he's clean. I never saw the same. You know, and if you were a kid in the ghetto of Cleveland growing up, I want a job where I get a different one of them every night. Johnny was always, he was before we had a word for it, Johnny was clean as the Board of Health, always, always. And one of the things I did when I started, when you talk about seeing my heroes in me, I remember on the budget having 10 suits made because I wanted to be sharp like Johnny. I wanted to present that visual image that Johnny presented. There were times when I love the Temptations I love harmony, I love choreography. Ain't nothing like the Temptations choreography, but mostly you want that curtain to go up so you can see what they're wearing. It's like, oh, they got the green, they got the green three-piece with the green gaiters. Oh man, no, that's not gator, that's Crocs. They got the Crocs. They wear green Crocs. Oh, I know you want to leave me, but I refuse. That was my thing. Dug them. Dug anybody that could dress. So I tried to throw that into my persona when it was created. It was in the basement of an apartment building that me and my mom lived in. 4 units, and it had a basement with washing machines down there. My mother had a rent party one time because in the ghetto you have rent parties where you have a party, you sell sandwiches, and food, and you have poker games, different things, and the profits made from the party, the admission to come in, goes to someone in the building who's in trouble. So, say for instance, your friends know you're in trouble. I mean, and you talk about a village, this is an old concept that probably doesn't exist anymore, but my mother had a rent party for this lady, Grace, and the money you give to her, but they had chairs that folded, these folding chairs and a card table. And I remember it had 4 legs. I set that stuff up in the basement one night after a rent party and interviewed my friend who ran track. He didn't run track for no school, we was too young, he just ran track, we called him Meat Man because when he ran, his stuff would shake, but he could run. And actually there was like, some local playground we used to go to, and in the summer we had these track events and stuff, and he was always the fastest in the neighborhood. So I interviewed him about his future in the Olympics, and the other guys just sat, and now that I think about it, there were no girls, because girls weren't even going to play the fantasy with me, and it's still that way. Women are not gonna humor me on the fantasy, but all the guys, we gather in the basement and I interview Meat Man, and then I had a little record player, and here's the Merv Griffin influence. Put on the record player, and at the end of the show, sang a song. So I interviewed Meat Man, sang a song, and said good night. I don't know. This is kind of obscure when it comes to knowledge of Arsenio stuff, and you're very prepared. But here's the most obscure thing about the talk show. I used to use a logo that was my actual signature, where I sign an A and a line and a dot. That signature was something I practiced over and over again in the 7th grade. I would sit in study hall, and you could look back at my grades. Clearly I wasn't studying in study hall. Go back and look at my grades. And I tried different signatures, A, R, S, Z, and I tried an A and a line and then an O. I looked at a doctor's prescription one time, and I just tried just doing that, What is it about doctors that go to all that schooling, 10 years of schooling, it's like, the Ambien. So I knew one day I was going to need an autograph. This is an amazing train of thought for a kid to think, I'll need an autograph. I don't even know what I'm going to do yet, but I need an autograph because I'm going to make it work, whatever I do. Go home one day after school and I'm watching afternoon television. It was Dinah Shore. And I don't tell this story much because it really ages you. When you say I went home after school and watched Dinah Shore, I just watched 4 people in a room gasp. Like OJ ran through with a steak knife. There are 4 much younger people in the room. And they gasp because they're like, he's old enough to have gone home after school and watched Diana Shaw. The only person that doesn't gasp is Burt Reynolds because he dated her. I saw her sign her signature, and it was a D and a line and an H and a dot where the I might be. And I was like, I'm gonna do something one day, and that's gonna be my autograph. I start signing my name with an A and a long line and a dot. And thank goodness, you know, I didn't end up working at Cedars-Sinai. That's the lesson I didn't learn when to stay out of the way. As a matter of fact, one of the hard things about being a stand-up and getting jobs, like I told you, I hosted a rebirth of Star Search for 2 years recently. And it's so hard for me to just read the card. I'm probably gonna lose 12 jobs answering this question, but I gotta be funny. I gotta do my jokes. And if you want somebody who can come in and maybe be the glue to your show and do his thing and be funny at the same time, great. But I don't know how sometimes to leave my ego backstage. I got to make people laugh. I got to do my thing. So if you're looking for a guy who says, hey, welcome to the show. Tonight we got a wonderful, help me please. Someone, send someone please. They won't let me do my own jokes. They won't let me, they just make me read the teleprompter. It's horrible. Johnny, maybe it's from doing it so many years that he had gotten his, and so he didn't need to always get some. You know, when I was sitting with George Wallace or Will Smith and they're being funny, I want to get in it, you know, I want to get in it. But Johnny was brilliant at knowing when he was needed and when he wasn't. Johnny knew how to jump in when a guest was bad, or when a guest was quiet or wasn't doing well. And when a guest was doing really well, Johnny knew how to just lay back, you know. And I learned that eventually. But initially, as a stand-up, silence is your enemy. You know, that's when you want to see a stand-up sweat. Let it get quiet in a room. And all of a sudden, that James Brown sweat, I don't care who you are, you can be Rosie O'Donnell, that James Brown sweat start pouring down your face because we don't like silence. So it's hard sometimes for us not to get the laugh or to stay out of it, but Johnny was great at that. And eventually I learned how to, if the Olsen twins are being cute, let them be cute. If they get quiet on you, you know, then you got to start doing some Bob Saget jokes or something that they'll relate to get this going, you know. Sometimes the best way to bring a person out is to entertain them. It'll make them comfortable, and it'll make them, instead of being on, and he's interviewing me, let's talk to each other, let's participate in something. We both doing it. I'll tell you something too, you know? And you engage a person in a conversation instead of an interview, never forgetting what your objective is. When you're sitting with Dr. Ruth, I don't know why this one popped in my head, but you look at Dr. Ruth and you say, so have you ever faked an orgasm? Now, you know she's gonna laugh, but it's gonna lead you into some fun stuff. And, you know, once again, laughter and fun is contagious. If you can bring that into an environment, whether you're a public speaker, whether you're a preacher, or whether you just work at Dairy Queen, it'll make what you do a lot better. And it'll relax somebody. You know, you don't want to take this attitude, okay, I got these blue cards. I try to never, even though it's something that Larry King does, Larry King never hesitates to look down at his blue cards. It can be a shot on him, and he'll look down at his cards. He's not trying to pretend like there are no wires and the lady's really floating. He lets you see the magic. I used to try to keep the blue cards from being seen because I wanted people to forget that this is an interview and my job is to get stuff out of you. I want you to think we just hanging, we just partying. You know, Brooke Shields, we just partied. Did you sleep with Michael Jackson? You know, and then you get him. Favorite guests? No. You know, for a talk show host, your favorite guests are the guests that don't make you work so hard. On On the other hand, I'm a ham and I like to work, so I didn't care, you know. But obviously, traditionally, the people that allow you to chill and save it for another day, Robin Williams, Will Smith, Eddie was good. There are some brilliant artists that don't make good talk show guests. One of my favorite people in the world is Robert De Niro, also a wonderful actor and one of my favorite actors. But Bobby, he's not into the, hey, let's talk for 10 minutes meaninglessly, you know? There are a lot of people like that who are just like, you know, there's some wonderful people, you know, that don't make good interviews.
Is that because they're nervous or they just don't want to talk at all?
I think when you look at the life of a guy like De Niro, you notice also he's made calculated choices to give you his art and not his life. You know, you don't see every time a refrigerator door opens and the light comes on, you don't see Bobby standing there. You know, he does his thing and he moves on. You never see Nicholson do late night interviews. Pull tape. You won't find Nicholson sitting saying, oh, I brought this clip. You know, it's like, he just doesn't do it. People know what they do. And I think some people are comfortable with script and with being given personas and dialogue. I think some stand-ups are uncomfortable with being given that. You ever try to write for a stand-up, put a stand-up in a movie? Sometimes you have to cut and say, hey, do the stuff we wrote! Stop it! Do it! You know, I mean, because, you know, and an actor will be like, will ask you questions. I want more from you. Tell me how, you know, and comics are like, I got this. I got this. I don't even need no script. You know? What's his name? Just tell me his name. I'll do the rest. You know? And it's just different kinds of people, you know? Your comics were always your best guests. Billy Crystal is a great guest. It's a brilliant guest. Because with Billy, you get humor and you get depth. You know, the best guests, sometimes the funniest people in stand-up are smart people. Bill Cosby, brilliant guest. You can usually, when you're watching a stand-up or a talk guest, you can usually tell a lot about a person's intellect through that interview. Dumb people don't make me laugh. And dumb people really don't have anything interesting or compelling to say. And this is the only time I won't mention names. But there are times when you're like, wow, this guy doesn't have a thought in his head that's unique, original, or humorous. So you have things planned. Hey, we got a little game we prepared, and you know, we got a game, and we want you to, and that's when you pulling out boards and cards, and here's a Nerf ball. You know, you put production with bad guests. You know, whenever you saw something happen in the interview, I shouldn't say this, because now you go back and pull all these things, and you'll see me with a cheese platter walking up to Estelle Getty or something. It's like, oh, he's really reaching. You know, no, it's like, never had a bad guest. Never had a bad guest. Never had to do no production, no nothing. I won't mention his name, but he was married to Streisand. I remember interviewing somebody and actually playing basketball with him on stage. Now, I've done that for fun with people that I like or I play ball with. I've done it with players from teams in the NBA or Woody Harrelson because it worked into White Men Can't Jump well or something. But I remember the first time I ever did an interview like that, I had him set up a basket and have a ball because I knew this actor loved basketball but was a horrible guest. So we just like, so tell me what the movie's about. It made him comfortable, it made him chill out, it made him have fun, and it was the best interview I've ever seen that person do. So sometimes you have to bring out, you know, some spices and make something work. When you're watching a talk show and all of a sudden Leno becomes Rip Taylor or Carrot Top or something, and it's like, you know, I called your mom today and she sent me this, you know, it's a photo and it's your old pillow and, you know, and all kind of props come into it and things start. That's what that is. That's a staff in the daytime saying, this is a horrible guest. What can we do to make it interesting. And all of a sudden, you know, it's like, you know, it's 2004 and there's a guy throwing a hatchet at Kevin Eubanks or something. It's like, he's not interesting. We had to do something. It's another, you know, Kevin's like, oh, great. And I get the hatchet. I've been blessed enough to be a part of a few. But, you know, what has happened to me that's been a blessing is I haven't done a lot, and the things I've done have worked. So it's almost like, you know, somebody saying he shot 100%, but he only took 4 shots, you know? You know, this is not therapy, but maybe I've discovered an issue about myself as far as risking is concerned. I really don't set out to do a lot of things, but I've been very blessed with the things I've done. I've been able to dabble and play in television, in film. I even was able to do a comedy music album, assuming a persona that was not me, that was supposed to be my fat brother or whatever. And you know, that never works. Of course, Garth Brooks probably told you, huh? Never works. Anyway, but yeah, I've had a lot of fun. I'm sorry. You know what? I just answered a question he didn't even ask. That's how much I like to talk. My thing was, when Eddie Murphy first told me the idea for Coming to America, which at that time was on a yellow pad, and it was called The Quest. And I found out later he changed the working title because The Quest was being used or had already been used. But he told me this idea, and he told me who he was going to do it with, because it was about him coming to America to find a wife with a bodyguard. And you know, I'm not big enough to play the whole bodyguard thing, and I was like, that's a great idea, great idea. And down the road, he came back to me and said, it doesn't have to be a bodyguard, it could be like his brother or his best friend. And he said, why don't you come to New York and let's write it? And we got together with Blostein and Sheffield, writers from SNL, and we put this movie together, basically in a hotel room like this with tape recorders. We would sit, and it's like, oh, you don't know no Joe Louis, you know, and just talk. And these guys would help us sort it out and turn it into a script. I don't even know why I'm telling you this now, but well, you know, I asked Brandon Tartikoff one time, why the big deal over late night? So much talk, so much money, so much gossip over something that gets a quarter of the rating that a primetime show gets. And what he explained to me was the whole concept of carryover viewing. One of the great actresses, I think Sigourney Weaver, you look this up, but I think her dad created the whole Tonight Show concept. And that term of carryover viewing not only meant that this is what you were going to watch when you went to bed, so whatever in the monologue probably will be your evening paper for news and culture. But in addition to that, wherever you go to bed at night, especially before that Antichrist, the remote control, became so popular, it's going to carry you over to what you watch in the morning. So investing a lot of money in late night puts you in a position where you can own the morning, which is a bigger number. If I got you at night watching Leno or The Tonight Show, I'll have a shot at you. I'll have the first shot at you in the morning for the Today Show, which is bigger money, bigger advertising, and so on and so forth. When he explained it to me, I realized how important this spot was, how important the first 10 minutes is. I have a 7-year-old child, and the other day a pizza commercial came on, and the pizza slogan was, pizza that makes you go, which is obviously a takeoff on my old stand-up routine, things that make you go, And grandma says to my son, that's because of daddy's thing. Try to explain that to a 7-year-old, you know? So I had to pull out a tape of a monologue where I'm doing things that make you go, But it was a cool time because for people to say something you say, you know, the power of having somebody walk up to you in the mall and say Nanu Nanu. I didn't know what Robin and people were living. To have people walk up to you and say, "What's up, bro?" You know, and people say, you know, it's like, you know, that's a fine. I had a guy say to me, "That's a fine big bone girl over there. She didn't drink milk like on the commercial. She must drink chocolate milk. I bet she drank chocolate milk, boy. Look, she grow 12 body 12 ways or whatever." He starts running off all this stuff, and then he said to me, he said, you know, and it's like, that's an amazing thing, to carve stuff in your head and then see a kid with something carved in his head because of that. I remember Steve Harvey, a comedian from Cleveland who went to college with me, Kent State. He was talking about stand-ups and how it used to be, you know, a jeans kind of business, blazer maybe. And he said, all the black comics are suited out, man. Comics are suited out because of how you brought it. You made it cool. You know, at one time that was your teacher, that was your preacher, that was the corny guy who wants you to dress nicer, you know. It kind of became hipper. And without tooting my own horn, I have to say, there are times when I used to look and say, this is really cool to see people who are affected in any way. Because, you know, I wasn't pushing meth. You know, I wasn't pushing, you know, I was the Hulk Hogan of late night. You know, I was like, leave the drugs alone, take your vitamins, say your prayers. If there was a big criticism against me, it was probably because I was the nice guy who fawned over the guests, who loved show business, who loved careers. I don't care whether you were Hasselhoff or Sammy Davis Jr. I knew what it took for you to get anywhere in life in this town. And I respected that. And I respected you. And there were other shows who did that other stuff, you know? And I like those shows, but that's not what I do.